Nellie Bly did a lot in her short life. She trotted 2,800 miles around the globe in under 80 days. She reported on the women's suffrage parades and lived through the First World War. But her first accomplishment lay atop a small island in New York's East River, the Women's Lunatic Asylum on Blackwell's Island. This is the story of how a daring young journalist changed the face of mental health care in New York City. And she was just 23 years old. This is Madeline Firestein with Rooted in Place, where even the darkest places can shed light. The city of New York purchased an island on the East River in 1832. Plans went full steam ahead to transform it into a literal dumping ground for the city's unwanted and most vulnerable. An almshouse, prison, workhouse, smallpox hospital, general hospital, and gendered lunatic asylums were erected, with the asylums opening a mere 7 years later in 1839. This asylum was New York City's true first form of mental health care, the first building to house and treat the insane. In our other videos, we remarked on how the mentally ill were confined to these small spaces, imprisoned in jail, sentenced to a workhouse, confined in a poorhouse. This might seem like a massive piece of reform for the Big Apple, but it was a literal shipment of people off the main island. The asylum was constructed with an octagonal tower, flanked by three sides. Various other outbuildings and detached structures helped make the island's asylum, hospital, and jail self-sufficient. As expected, Blackwell's population boomed. It rapidly became overcrowded, quadrupling its capacity within the first 30 years to over 2,000 patients. The asylum's notoriety hit the rest of the nation really quick. Rumors of barbaric torture and medical treatments turn out to be true. Members of staff, who are often very unqualified and even pulled from the city's jails, indulge in sadistic acts that likely inspired our current understanding and vision of a scary insane asylum. The island's isolation kept this truth in the dark until one day, a bright-eyed new journalist feigned madness to gain admission to Blackwell's and tore the lid off it. Elizabeth Jane Cochran was born in 1864 in Armstrong County, Pennsylvania. Better known as Nellie Bly, she's most recognized for her 72-day trip around the globe in 1890, inspired by the works of Jules Verne. Nellie Bly is considered the first muckraker, a form of journalism in the late 1800s in which reporters literally raked the muck of society, exposing systematic issues. Now, Bly had a storied life and career. She's infinitely fascinating. But we're going to concern ourselves right now with her very first assignment. In 1887, she landed a job at Joseph Pulitzer's New York World. Yes, that Pulitzer. She was tasked with feigning madness and infiltrating the women's lunatic asylum on Blackwell's. After 10 days, Pulitzer would bail her out and she would report her findings. Bly successfully duped not only the staff at Blackwell's, but also the referring physicians at the prestigious Bellevue Hospital, from whom she needed a referral. The resulting report led to a massive expose on her certified time as a lunatic, 10 days in a madhouse, or Nellie Bly's experience on Blackwell's Island, consisting of 16 chapters and compiled into a larger work called Miscellaneous Sketches, which included other clickbaity titles like Nellie Bly was a white slave. This booklet was an instant bestseller. Marketed at only 25 cents, this booklet spans from her initial referral at Bellevue to how she pretended to hear voices. It covered her island transportation, her meals, her cellmates, comments on the staff, and even beatings. If I did get into the asylum, which I hardly hope to do, I had no idea that my experiences would contain aught else than the simple tale of life in an asylum. The stories I had read of abuses in such institutions I had regarded as widely exaggerated, or else romances. Yet there was a latent desire to know positively. I shuddered to think how completely the insane were in the power of their keepers, and how one could weep and plead for release, and all of no avail, if the keepers were so minded. Eagerly I accepted the mission to learn the inside workings of the Blackwell Island Insane Asylum. And stories she did find. Within the book, Bly wrote honestly about the women she met. She interviewed women from all walks of life, but especially immigrants, who would be considered among one of the lowest in society's totem poles. Comically, Bly referred to the staff as so-called experts in insanity, mocking their credentials and their perceived ability to treat mental illness. She wrote explicitly about the abuses she witnessed, force feedings, questionable medications, and the taunting and harassment of the older women. Bly was removed from the asylum at her contracted time and immediately set to work, publishing her findings. According to the Library of Congress, Bly's work shifted the budget for the Department of Charities and Corrections from 1.5 million to over 2.3 million. But the damage had been done. The Blackwell's Asylum closed 7 years after that book came out. In the early 1900s, a new asylum was put in that place, the Metropolitan Hospital. But that, too, lingered on the reputation of Blackwell's. It could not accommodate and treat its patients properly. The island itself was starting to shut down. In 1921, it was renamed Welfare Island. By 1955, all residents of the jail, workhouse, poorhouse, general hospital, and asylum were all relocated to other facilities across New York City. The buildings suffered immensely, crumbling into ruins and demolished by the late 1970s, when the island was ultimately renamed Roosevelt Island, a testament to disability history and acknowledgement of our polio survivor president, despite the island's dark history. Only one building remains on the island from its time as an essential torture chamber, that dreaded octagonal tower. In 2006, the tower was converted into a 500-unit luxury apartment building, where it is said the ghosts of former patients still roam the halls. In New York City today, Roosevelt Island is a tourist attraction. It is not entirely rebuilt. Crumbling facades and steel beams still echo its time as a warehouse for the city's unwanted, but it resembles a fallen factory rather than a hellish asylum. All Nellie Bly wanted to do was to prove to everyone that Blackwell's was as bad as everyone said it was. She ended up doing a lot more good than intended. The Roosevelt Island Historical Society maintains the memory of these buildings, while the residents at 888 Main Street live in its shadow. To learn more, please visit our website, check out the links below on Blackwell's history, and follow us on social media. This is Madeline Firestein with Rooted in Place.